Tonight, we're going to explore how to make dark colors by mixing your various watercolors together. And so there's a specific group of colors that I like to use that I'm going to be sharing with you and showing you some of the different types of mixes that you can get in order to create a lot of extra depth or drama in your pieces. Now, there's a particular book that a lot of my shows, I will pick out one or more books, not always, but oftentimes, and show you the books that were the inspiration. So this one is a getting started series book about watercolor. And the gentleman who is the author is, what is that, John Lovett right there. Yes, it's an older book, but it is still in print. So on YouTube, I will put a link to the book in the description of the video later tonight when I go back and edit the video. And so this particular artist likes to do sort of architectural type works. So let me show you something here. Well, what I was inspired by in his book, and I've done several versions of it, is painting walls. Do you see the brick wall right there? And so that is what I like about it is that he goes back in and he uses some dark paint in order to get the dimension in the wall. Here's another one right after that one, which is a little bit different kind of wall, but do you see all the darkness that's in there? And I just love his technique. Now that is just a small snippet. He does other things too. You see his fish here, and you see the drama in the background, how he has a lot of contrast between his light fish and his dark background. And that's another very important subject that he goes for. He does a lot of architectural things. So, like this right here in the book. And I did a piece uh, that was using some of his techniques and some of the colors that he likes to use. And I went out to Pixabay and Unsplash. Those are two of my favorite websites for what do they call it? Royalty free artwork. And so I pulled, for instance, two different types of brick walls here. This is like a Chicago brick, right? And then this is more like just a stone wall right here. But I wanted to use these two as examples of what those different kind of walls look like up close and personal, right? So I did, using his technique out of the book, I did this one, which I was following along with this wall, this brick wall right here. And so that's something that you can do is you can go into Pixabay or you can go into Unsplash, Unsplash, and you can say that you want a brick wall. And it'll show you all different kinds of brick walls. But that is what I was looking for was, okay, just give me the brick wall. And then I also pulled off of there a bunch of images. Let me look behind this image here um, of other like this. So you see there's a brick wall. So that was part of when I requested, give me a brick wall. This is one of the images that came up, and it was a brick wall here. I like that it has a door, it has a window, and it also has nice plants right here. So there's a lot of interest in something like that. But I was really interested in these bricks because that's what I'm going to show you how to do tonight is I'm going to show you how to mix the colors and then how to make bricks and go back in and give you that extra depth in there, right? Another one, let me see, I'm just going to show you a couple of the other ones that I pulled. I thought we might do this one tonight, and that because there's the stone wall, we have a nice plant and we have a little lantern right there. So you see how black the lantern is. And I can show you how to mix that dark black from some of the colors instead of just grabbing a black, which we can always just grab a black, but you're going to get your best um, sort of depth if you're layering, putting several layers of other colors that you mix together to get your darks instead of just grabbing for your black. That's not to say that I don't just grab my black sometimes. I do. Sometimes I just grab my black. Now, in 2007, I was in France and I took a whole bunch of pictures in a medieval town. And so these are some of the pictures that I took. So we've got, I like the keystone brick up across the top here, and then there's stone and brick on either side. And the door has a lot of drama to it. So you've got the red with the little holes in it and the black, right? And this is another door that I just thought, again, keyhole style up here. And then I liked that it had the sort of orangey red down here and the lavendery blue here, bricks all around. Um, those pictures, along with, let me show you these two right here. So there's another one, a door, and we've got, you would have to make up some of these bricks, but that's okay. You're looking for a composition there, but I like how dark the door is and how dark this area underneath that little overhang is. And then this one, nothing like putting lavender, right? And in France, they grow so much lavender. So here's a little pot of lavender growing in here where the pipes have to come out to make that so pretty. So there are stones down here as well as bricks around. And so these four pictures of the doors and this are on my website, which you're welcome to print off and use for following along or doing your own painting. So if you didn't grab that earlier, here is my website, deetsart.com, and that's where you can find those images and print them off so that you can uh, sort of follow along, right? So I need to pick, I think I want to pick one of these two, this one or this one. So y'all, if you have a preference of which one you want me to do, the blue door or the red and black door, let me know in the comments and I'll try to follow along and um, we'll do one of those, right? So let me set those aside. But part of those pictures that I pulled off of online, this was actually part of the set of pictures I think that I got off of Unsplash. So it was a window with the keyhole style up here of brick. And then there were blacked out up here and curtains down here. And this black right here, there's no black in there. It's blues and siennas and and then multiple layers in order to get that darkness there. Now there are some black lines along here, and for those I used a micron pen, which is my favorite. So if you have to add in some black lines afterwards, you know, it doesn't have to be purely watercolor. You can go back in with a pen, okay? If you need to define some lines like that. So that was uh, sort of my workout. That was my warm up in order to be ready to teach you all these concepts. Let me see now. Also in this book, I'm going to show you. There's one page way back in the back, which I was surprised that it's so far back. But way back here, um, he shows you how to get your darks here, what it is that you're putting together. So one of the colors is raw sienna. So you've got your siennas and your blues, and you have your alizarin crimson and your blues. So when we go over top of the table, I'm going to show you those and how you can mix them together to get those wonderful darks. But this one, getting started, watercolor for the fun of it, is what I'll have a link for in the description of the video later tonight. Oops, see, these were some of my sketches out of there. Following along. Oh, there's a fishy, like the way that he was doing it in his book. So oftentimes I'll do little sketches like this from the book and then I'll leave them. That's what it was. Those fell out of the front of the book here. So I'm going to put them back in there as my references for another time. All right. Um, Now, a couple of months ago, I think it was in December. Yeah, about December, I did a workshop with a friend of mine, an online workshop. And I really appreciated that the teacher of that online workshop took the time to go through and show us how to mix some darks. And so this is a, for instance, this is Prussian blue, and this is burnt umber. It says here burnt umber. And then moving in this direction like this, in terms of this has more burnt umber in it and this has more Prussian blue in it, okay? And just playing around. So it's take a whole sheet of paper. This is watercolor paper. Take a whole sheet of paper and just play with your different colors to see what kind of mixes you can get. And I'm going to be giving you specific colors tonight to do this kind of exercise with. Okay, I'm going to show you the ones that where I did the color mixes so that you can see. I didn't do the whole series like this. I was just looking for a particular color, but I wanted to show you this so that if you decide that you do want to pick up a couple of these paints, I would suggest that you do this in order to get a feel for what kind of colors they mix into. Uh, and then here is that was just with two colors. Now this is with three colors. And so what are the colors here? Indigo, that's indigo. This one is burnt sienna, and this one is raw sienna. And you can see when we do color mixing, the three colors that we mix with, we need a blue, we need a red, and we need a yellow. But there are many different versions of blue, red, and yellow. And so this happened to be this version. And I also wrote on here, if you notice right there, it says WN, that means Winsor and Newton. That's the Winsor and Newton indigo. This is the Daniel Smith burnt sienna. And this is the Winsor and Newton raw sienna. The different brands have different colors. It'll be called the same thing, but it'll look different. So for instance, the raw sienna of Daniel Smith doesn't look like this. It's darker, a little bit darker. And so different brands will have different effects. And that's why I specifically wrote on here which brand of paint I was using in order to get these various mixes. Okay, so it does make a difference. And I suggest that when you if you're using tube paints to do this, and this is what the tube paints look like here. So if you're using tube paints and you're doing that and you have different brands of tube paints, definitely make some sort of note on there as to which brand you're working with. Now, the colors that we're going to use tonight, I'm going to show you some different versions of getting these dark mixes. And so here we have ultramarine blue, Prussian blue, and indigo. Now, you see how dark this indigo is? It almost looks black just by itself. That's the Daniel Smith. All of these are Daniel Smith colors that I'm working with tonight. So let me show you again what the label looks like. It has a little flower here. This happens to be the indigo. Okay, but that everything we're going to use tonight is from one brand called Daniel Smith. And well, that's not necessarily true. I have another, just in case I need a different color than what we're working with for flowers or something. I have another little palette here that is chock full of a whole bunch of different colors, but always have to have a spare backup, right? Yikes. Okay, but so here is the indigo from Daniel Smith, but the indigo that I just showed you from Windsor and Newton is a lot lighter. You see how it was still very concentrated here, but it's much lighter. It's not as dark and as dense as the one from Daniel Smith. So that's another example of where different brands have a different look to their same color name paint. Okay. And then down the side, so we had what? The ultramarine, the Prussian blue, and the indigo. And then these are different natural colors, the siennas, um, the umber. So the burnt umber, those are the colors that we're going to be working with. A classic combination to get your dark is to use a sienna of some sort or an umber. So those are very natural brown colors together with your dark blues. So that's why I have the ultramarine. Most palettes have an ultramarine blue in them. So that's why that's one of the ones I wanted to show you was the ultramarine blue. Here's what the ultramarine blue from Daniel Smith, see, I had to put DS for Daniel Smith, looks like by itself. Not nearly as dark as the Prussian blue, right? And then not nearly as dark again as the indigo. These are all Daniel Smith, but you can definitely get away with using ultramarine if that's what you have in your palette. That's why I wanted to show you the effect of these different blues, because I don't know what you have in your palette, but we're going to make it work. But when you combine a blue with those, like a burnt umber or a burnt sienna, then you can get very, very dark colors. And that's what you're going to use for your shadows or for when you need to put a little bit of darkness or some gray in somewhere. Okay. So with the gray, you're not going to use just your indigo. You're going to combine the indigo with a little bit of sienna. So there are a couple of different kinds of siennas. We have the raw sienna. So remember how I said that the raw sienna from Winsor and Newton looks very yellow? There's the raw sienna from Winsor and Newton. Here's the raw sienna from uh, Daniel Smith. Do you see the difference there? So this one is much more yellow, the one from Winsor and Newton, and this one is a little more orangey brown, and this is the one from Daniel Smith. So that's why you have to test them all individually. So that is a raw sienna, which has this very nice light, warm brown color. Then you have burnt sienna. By the way, these are the same pigment. The pigment code that's on the tube. So let me show you, for instance, a tube of this. So here is the raw sienna tube. That's what this one was right here. And on the tube, it's going to tell you, in this case, it's right there on the side. It says PBR7. That's the code for the pigment. But if you look at burnt sienna, okay, it's another sienna, but it says burnt sienna. And then you look on the side here, and guess what the code says? PBR7. But Tristina, that's the same pigment code. But if you look here, those don't look the same, do they? And that's because there are different chemical processes and different heat temperatures at which raw sienna, burnt sienna. So they heat the sienna and it turns from this color to this color. Isn't that crazy? Same pigment, but different way that they handle it. Then there's one more, which is called Quinacridone Sienna. And Quinacridone Sienna is not a PBR7. It's a combination of some other colors. And so let me show you what that looks like. It almost looks like orange, right? So here we have three Daniel Smith siennas: raw sienna, burnt sienna, quinacridone sienna. Okay. The thing is, any of these will work for what we're doing. All right. And we're going to use a lot of this raw sienna. And then I will grab one or the other of these two, depending on how orange I want my color to look. Right. So those are the siennas. Now here's a burnt umber. Let's see what's in the burnt umber. The burnt umber. Oh, imagine that. Burnt umber, PBR7. So it says the same thing on there, PBR7. But it's burnt umber, a darker version of it. It's crazy. So here is the burnt umber. So let's compare the burnt sienna and the burnt umber. This one's definitely more red, isn't it? And this one's just more of a brown. So I like having burnt umber on my palette, um, along with those crazy siennas, right? But those are the basis of us creating our darks is the siennas, the umbers, and those dark blues. Okay. Um, and then there's another color here that I am absolutely in love with right now. And it is called Aussie Red Gold. I was introduced to it by another artist who said they absolutely have to have this in their palette. It's called Aussie Red Gold. And so if you look kind of in that same vein of what we're looking at here, it's got that orangey red up here and then a yellow undertone. So this is sort of a little punchier than the other ones that we were working with, but it has a lot of yellow in it. So it does have its place in what it is that we're doing. Now, something that the author used for in this book, part of their palette is they use a color called alizarin crimson. So you'll find a lot of watercolor artists love alizarin crimson, which is a red color. And this is what it looks like here. So it's kind of almost a rosy red, isn't it? Um, the interesting thing is that there are the original alizarin crimson is fugitive. That means that if it gets a lot of sunlight on it, it will uh, turn brown over time. So and then there is, so this is let me find it. Daniel Smith has the alizarin crimson. And you might think, well, why would somebody still paint with alizarin crimson if it goes brown over time, right? Well, if you're illustrating and then you're scanning or photographing your artwork and making prints, then knock yourself out. Use these colors like this that may not last a long time, but it doesn't matter because you're going to scan or photograph your artwork and let alizarin crimson work its magic. But a lot of the companies, a lot of the paint companies have come up with because people love alizarin crimson as a mix for what they're doing. It gives you beautiful, deep purples. So they've created something they call permanent alizarin crimson. So we're going to use the permanent alizarin crimson. Here's the difference. Let me show you here. So this is the alizarin crimson. It's a single pigment right here. It has one pigment in it. It's PR83, but it is not light fast. Over here is the permanent alizarin crimson, which is light fast, but you'll notice there are three different pigments in here that make up a pigment that looks very similar to this one. Okay, it's almost exactly the same, but this is single pigment, this is multiple pigments in order to give the effect of this but with light fastness. So that is something that you need to look at depending on if you're just painting for fun, you don't need to worry about it. But if you're in a journal, maybe that's going to be closed most of the time. But if you're making artwork that you want to sell the original artwork, you want to be sure you're working with a permanent alizarin crimson and not your single pigment old classic style alizarin crimson. Okay. So that's the difference. Both the tubes look the same, but one is light fast and one is not. Okay. So that's really important. All right. Let me show you some of these mixes. I think I showed you all of them. Yep. Those are all the colors we're going to be working with. They work perfectly for bricks and for the darks. So we'll be working with them. Um, so I showed you before the three blues across here and now down this side right here. We have the burnt sienna and I put the color codes next to it. So you can see it's a PBR7. PBR7. Is this one also PBR7? Yeah, PBR7. Isn't that crazy? All three of these are the same color code or pigment code, but three different versions of it. All this is Daniel Smith, okay? In terms of the brand. Then down here, we have the Quinacridone Sienna, which is made up of several pigments and it has this kind of orangey look to it. I use this a lot, y'all. A lot. I love this. Another concept is that items that are across from each other on the color wheel, so our colors that are crossed. So we've got our blue right here, and we've got our orange right here. See how they're directly across from each other on the color wheel. When you mix them together, you're going to get what some people call mud, but it depends on how you blend it. So here we're going to take the blue and we're going to go over to the orange. And if you look, you see how it shows you it's sort of a mousy brown olive color when you mix those two together. So it gives you a dark color. And that's what we're going to be working with. That's why I really like that quinacridone, excuse me, the quinacridone Sienna, because it's orange and orange is the opposite of blue. So it gives you really nice, um, nice darks, right? Okay, then the last thing down here was the Aussie Red Gold. So what I did was I mixed these colors together and then there's the result. I mixed this one together and there's the result. And the indigo and this one and there's the result. Looking for my darks. So it can be a really great exercise for you to take your blue and a sienna or an umber and mix them together and see what the tone of the darks are. Okay. Because one of the things I noticed is this Prussian blue right here actually mixes a lot of deep greens. Even that one right there. You see how that's a rich, deep green, like a forest green? A lot of these turned out green when you're working with Prussian blue. So that's just something to bear in mind. Oh, if I'm doing something, it's landscapey and I want some nice dark greens, then you can grab your Prussian blue and mix it with some of these earth colors, and you'll see that you'll have some dense greens that you can work with. Okay. The indigo over here that I mixed with these colors, you're going to see that a lot of these are very gray. So these colors have like a blue gray or almost a light brown gray kind of look to them. So if I'm looking for something that's gray, I'm going to grab my indigo and one of these and then pull and get myself a nice muted gray. Now down here with the quinacridone sienna, that orangey color, I've got something that's a little more brown. See that nice dark brown, very rich, like a pine tree. And then if I add a little bit more of the indigo, I get there again, I get that gray. You see that? And then here with the Aussie Red Gold, which is a little more of the yellow undertone, I get something that looks a little more like a dark green again. Okay, so definitely a good, this is a good exercise to do with whichever ones you have. And if you have different brands, just mark the different brands on there for yourself so that you know what the colors look like and what the different effects are for mixing your darks. I'm going to show you actually mixing them when we get over top of the table in just a second. Now there are a couple more colors. So those are the basic colors we're going to be working with in terms of our browns and our walls and doing the bricks and things like that. Okay. So that's the primary. You have a blue, you have a one of your siennas or the umber, and then an alizarin crimson. If you don't have alizarin crimson, look for something in your stash that looks kind of rosy like that. Okay. Um, it's a PV, so the color code for your standard red is PV like Victor 1919 PV19. Okay. Um, that's not alizarin crimson, but that is a good mixing transparent color of red. if you don't have alizarin crimson, okay? You're likely to have a PV, like a primary red sort of thing, and you can substitute that for the alizarin crimson. Now, I'm just going to mention a couple more colors that I like to work with. This one, especially if I'm doing things that are landscapey again, and I need a good yellow to mix with my dark blues in order to get dramatic greens. And that's this color here. Oops. I guess it would help if I'd show you the tube. This is Daniel Smith Nickel Azo Yellow. Let me hold that up there so you can clearly see it. And that is a PY 150. So that is the code. It says there, Nickel Azo Yellow, PY 150. And that's what it looks like right there. It's a very, it almost leans toward green. Okay. It's a yellow that kind of looks a little bit greenish. And it's perfect for mixing with these dark blues to get those beautiful, beautiful dark greens. Um, so that's a good one to have in your collection for sure. And then there are a couple of greens that are my go-tos. Go-to. And one of them is Perylene Green. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the Perylene colors, but Perylene Green is definitely a go-to that I go to a lot. And even though it's called a green, if you look at the pigment code, it's PBK31. And so PBK means pigment black 31. But it is the most gorgeous deep dark green. You see that right there? So if you want a convenience color without having to mix your deep greens, then grab yourself this Perylene Green. Love the Perylene Green. I use it a lot. A lot. Oh my gosh. And then something that I discovered recently from Daniel Smith, I haven't seen it with any of the other brands. They may have them, but I haven't seen it with the other brands. And it's called Prussian Green. So here it's called Prussian Green. And this is what it looks like, y'all. Oh my gosh. Isn't that gorgeous? Again, that's a gorgeous grab the tube and you're ready to rock and roll. You've got an incredible dark green to start with right there. So definitely in terms of convenience colors, these two greens are my go-to like deep greens. Um, Oops, I think I held up the wrong color. Here you go. If you wanted to do a shot, a picture of that. But that's my Perylene green and my Prussian green. Oh my gosh, beautiful, beautiful colors. Um, for green, I mean, there are tons of lighter greens and you can mix lots of greens, but if you want to be able to just grab a tube and have a dark green, one of those two are amazing. And the last color that I want to show you, if you just want to quick grab a color and have a shadow, like I need a shadow and I need it now, right? Stat. There you go. Daniel Smith Lunar Violet. So let me do that right there. Lunar Violet, it's called. And here's what it looks like. And so you just pop that on there. You're gonna have a quickie shadow. And it was one tube. So this is again what we would call a convenience color, where it's a combination of black and, let's see, PV15, that primary violet I told you about. I'm sorry, PV. Oh, this is PV15, not PV19. Sorry, it's black plus ultramarine violet is what's in here. It's the lamp black, I think, right? No, Mars Black. PBK11 and PV15 is what's in here. But you know what? Just get yourself a tube of this. Okay. Lunar Violet. Amazing. Perfect for popping in shadows right there without having to think too much about it, right? That's why they're called convenience colors. I love the convenience of them. Now, we're also going to be using a palette because we have to squeeze this paint into something, right? So I just like little plates like this. You just need, this is a Corel glass, but you can also get little ceramic plates like that. I'll put a link to a ceramic plate, one of my favorites, but right now it's somewhere in the other side of my studio, and I don't know where it is. um, and this already has a couple of the colors on here, the raw sienna. What is this? Raw sienna, quinacridone sienna, and this one was the uh, Aussie Red Gold. So I'll put, this is the one that I was using for my siennas. And then for the blue ones, I found these recently. I found these cute little, these are like condiment dishes, right? For soy sauce and stuff like that. And they're perfect for squeezing a color in when you're painting. And these are fantastic. The other kind that are my favorite little single color palettes, I think these might be from Jack Richardson. I'm not sure, but they're plastic, where these are like a hard melamine right here. These are plastic, but if you'll notice, there are little tiny nubs on there. Do you see the little nubs? I just refound these online like a week ago. I'm like, oh, thank goodness, because I love these. The reason being, with the little nubs, you can put your brush across here, and then it holds it on there and it doesn't just roll right off. These are awesome. And I have a big pile of these here in my studio as well. So I wanted to let you know about those, because that's if you want to squeeze individual colors in, you can use those or use these little melamine bowls for that. So that's what we're going to be using tonight. And then we want to use some watercolor paint brushes. So I have a couple of different kinds here. These are what I would call imitation squirrel. So these are not real squirrel hair, although they look like real squirrel hair because they've got that black color and they hold a lot of water. These are the Famui brushes that I've been buying recently. And so we're going to be using those. This is a nice big one of the Famui fake squirrel. Some people prefer the synthetic over the real, right? They want a synthetic hair. They don't want to be hurting animals. So these Famui brushes are actually excellent quality. I love that one. And then my favorite brush for doing these bricks is this one right here with, see how that's short? It's a flat, it's called, right? But it's short. So some companies call this a bright. It'll, the name of it'll say bright. Well, what that is it is a flat brush with short bristles like this. So Famui just calls it a flat, but you see how it's a short flat. And most flat brushes are not short like this. Most of them are more like, oops, that's not a flat. See, like this one, how it's a big old long flat, like right there. So I like this one in particular because it's a short flat. And then some detail brushes if we need them. So these have little teeny tiny, tiny hairs there. Um, and then you might want to wash or a mop brush. So this actually is natural squirrel hair, and it's called a mop brush. You can get mop brushes with natural squirrel hair or with synthetic squirrel hair. Actually, I think I have a synthetic squirrel hair one here. Let me see, where's my Neptune? Well, I'm not seeing my, this is also considered a mop and it's synthetic. This is from Princeton Velvet Touch, and it's a mop, and that's synthetic squirrel hair. So either one of these holds a lot of water, so you can flood your paper if you need to. All right, anything else? Oh, I wanted to show you something very unexpected. When you're doing color mixing, like I was doing here, and testing to get different um, strengths of darks, I I went to test a combination that is a combination that I use all the time of other brands, and that is a violet together with a yellow. Most of the time, if you mix a violet and a yellow, you get something very brown. Okay. So I was shocked when I took the lunar violet and I mixed it with the nickel azo yellow. So I was expecting a brown. I was looking for a dark brown, and I mixed these two together. And y'all, I got green. It's crazy. It came up green. I'm like, how the heck did that come up green? But there's our nickel azo yellow. And here is the lunar violet. And in the middle there, you can kind of see green. Now I have a little dish here where I was mixing it. Where did it go? Where did it go? I'm looking for my mixing dish. Eh, I must have put it in my other pile there. So I put those two together and I was blown away because I got dark green. And I'll show you, for instance, here's a flower I did on an artist trade card. And you see how dark that green is? That's like a deep, deep olive green. That's the combination of this violet and yellow, which I absolutely did not expect. So it's very good to spend some time with your materials and just color mix different combinations because you just never know what you're going to come up with. I was shocked. So because it came up with that beautiful green, I did this card and then I did this card because I had paint and it was mixed, right? So I needed to use it. And so you see the beautiful green right here, and that's the yellow that I mixed with that purple. It's just crazy. Crazy. This one I added a little bit of that Quinacridone Sienna to it to get the orange. But anyway, it can spark your desire to do something else, right? Or to create something when you do a mix and you go, oh my gosh, that is so cool. Let me use it right away. All right, we're going to go up over top of the table because I've described already what we're going to work with, and we're going to start putting some of these to the test. We are going to, first of all, sketch one of these doors. Put this here. That way you'll be able to see as I mix the colors, right? That should be, uh, let's move it over. I have 2 containers of water, by the way. So I find it really helpful if you have at least 2 containers of water. And I'm also going to be using a brush holder, a brush rest as I'm painting. I actually have 2 of these in my studio because when I get going, I usually end up using around 5 or 6 brushes. So, all right, there's some water. I have the brush rests. Um, where did I just put my blues? Right here. So I've got those. What I have here is the um, Prussian Blue. No, I'm sorry. This is the Indigo, the super dark. This is the Prussian Blue, which gives me a lot of greens, and the Ultramarine Blue, which is most likely what most people have in their art kits, right? If you get yourself a palette, like a travel palette like this, or if you buy a set of tubes, it's likely to have the ultramarine in it. Okay. And but these are the best ones for mixing the darks that we're going to be mixing. Now let's set this aside and we're just going to do a sketch. So we'll again, these images are on, these are pictures I took in France and it's on my website. So you can always pop over to my website and grab these. This is just, this is an ancient Hercules graphite pencil holder. So when you push, it feels very substantial. I bet it was made in Germany. No, it says China. I'm shocked. You push the back end and then you buy your leads like this. And then it's a lead holder. So you can decide how long you want it. Isn't that cool? And then you can replace it easily. So we're going to do a little sketch of this right here. Just real quick, like it's a relatively simple image. Okay, so I am going to do this right here. We have an arch, and there's a little bit of a slight angle here. And then the arch goes like this, and then it comes almost together down here where it sort of goes like that. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is this part inside the door right there. And then we're going to go down the sides here. You know what? Do I have enough room for bricks? I want more room for bricks because I love the bricks. So I'm actually going to make this a little bit smaller. Otherwise, the majority of it'll be the door, right? And not so much the bricks. So let's make that a little bit smaller. Smaller. So let's bring it in where I want the end. Oop, I want the end to be here. Oh, that's too much of an arch, right? And then we'll do this part sort of right here. So we'll bring this and then it'll get skinnier as it's coming over here. There we go. That's better. So when I'm drawing, yes, I'm erasing a lot usually. If I'm really brave, I use one of these, the Micron pen, and then I'm just like, whatever. I make it very sketchy if I'm doing it that way. Okay, we're just dropping this straight down. And then the bricks comes out like this. Ooh, and there's actually this part right here. And this actually is a whole bunch of bricks, which there's the keyhole bricks up here. And then over here, we're going to have more bricks that sort of stick out like this. So I'm just giving myself a little bit of a reference. They don't have to be the same size. So I'm just giving myself a reference that we're going to have bricks coming down here. And they're going to be bricks all out this side. And over here, we also have some bricks. So this actually comes from here, like straight down there. And the door is actually at a little bit of an angle. So we're going to bring this over like this. So because I was looking at this at a bit of an angle like this, you can see I can't see the inside of the door here, but I can see the inside of the door here. And so the bottom of the door is not going to be flat because I'm looking at it at an angle, okay? So the bottom of the door actually slants down just a little bit, all right? That's why I was doing that. Okay, and then we're going to have just more bricks here. And the interesting thing is that there are actually some bricks along here too. So I'm just going to draw some reference lines. I'll do when I'm actually using my brush, then I'll brush in the bricks there. Okay, and then, so this is going to be bricks all along there. Now, something that's not here in this picture, but is underneath the stucco is you see how there are stones right here? So that's called the keystones up above the top there, right? Like normally there's one at the top there. Isn't Pennsylvania the keystone state and the picture is a keystone that's sort of this shape, right? So that's what would be in the center here. And then it fans out in either direction just above the door to give the door extra um, strength above it because there's a hole there, right? So that's what we're going to do up here. Even though you can't see it, we're going to create like a keystone effect right there because we're artists and that we're allowed to do that, right? So they're actually not going to be straight up and down because I'm looking at the door at an angle, right? So they're going to be a little bit narrower here and a little bit wider over here. So let me just start with the one in the center here. So I'm just creating sort of a keystone effect here. Let's see. So if it's wider here, you'll have a little bit more of an angle. And then from here, we just have some other stones coming out this way. You know, this is a suggestion. I could always change it with my paint, right? And what a lot of people do is after they put the pencil down, they use something called a kneaded eraser like this. And then they come in and they pick up some of the graphite, especially if you're going to be doing watercolor, because a lot of times watercolorists don't like to see all those heavy lines underneath. So they come back with just a kneaded eraser like this, and they just pick up that little bit on top. I'm not worried about it. I'm cool with seeing the lines. I don't have a problem with that at all. But I just wanted to let you know that that's what a lot of people do. It's called a kneaded eraser. Okay, the back, and this is my favorite of the rubber erasers. It's called a Mars Statler Mars plastic. Hey there, welcome in, CMA. I'm doing a watercolor painting class right now. Okay, so as these come out here, they're actually going to be a little bit closer together. Okay, and a little bit sort of different angle there, right? So those are the keystones up above the door. And then, of course, there are going to be more bricks out here. And these are actually a little bit shorter because of the angle. Okay, so I'm giving myself some reference points. Now the door, of course, let's look at the door here and see. This is coming straight down, but it's a little bit at an angle, right? I like these windows. I'm going to make these windows very dark, so we're going to see how we do the darks there. Um, okay, so right about here, I'm just going to drop this straight down. Yee. There we go. And then there's the other little side right there. So I'm dropping in the middle section right here. And then there's a little bit that goes along the bottom, a little bit of the wood, and it's at an angle. So it's not straight, it's at that angle that the door is shifted to the side. Okay. Oh, all right. I like it. I like it. And then we're going to put the windows in. So let's see, the window starts about right here. E, that needs to be sort of at an angle. All right, we'll bring that down and across here and drop that down. There's one window. Oh, and there are kick panels at the bottom, right? That's the cool thing. I love those kick panels. So we've got a kick panel here and a kick panel over here. And there, the kick panels are orange. Let me put the picture here again. So if you wanted to, you could snap a picture of it and then go ahead and use it as a reference if you have another device, or just go to my website and grab it off of there. It'll be under on my website. You go to the menu item called Events, EVENTS, and you click on Events, and that will take you to, I'm not sure if it's showing this event under past events at this point or not. It'll either be in the main events page, or it'll be in the past events. Okay. And then let's put the other one over here. The other one's actually a little bit further over. There we go. Drop it straight down. And it appears to be a little bit higher here. And I'm just doing it at a slight angle. I'm going to bring this picture up for you in just a second. Okay, so you can look at it. You can look at the lines a little bit better. So this is what I do. I just sketchy. Okay, this side appears a little bit bigger than this side. Hmm, they may not be, but oh well, it's all right. That's how I drew it, and I'm sticking to it. So I hope you're able to see that. If I bring it up a little bit closer, you should be able to see some of the lines. These are just reference lines. I like to do a lot of the painting just from the brush. So these are just sort of reference lines to give me an idea of where I am. Okay. Then the next step that I do after a sketch, hey, superpower browser or Bowser, welcome in. All right, I'm just going to set this up in front of me over here in case I need it. Oops. Now this, just so you know, I took um, when I print my pictures, this is a regular 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and I like to put two on one piece of regular printer paper to kind of preserve paper. And I, for my particular printer, I can tell it that I want to print two 5 by 7s, and it will put two 5 by 7s next to each other on this piece of paper. And that way it makes it super easy for me to just fold the paper in half and then isolate the image that I'm working with like that. And so I find that works really well for me. It's a little bit bigger than printing it on a 4 by 6 photograph. So that's the way that I like to print my reference pictures. Okay, here we go. I just have it set up in front of me as a guide. Okay, let's squeeze out some paint. Now, I did say that over here I have the ultramarine blue, I have the Prussian blue, and I have the indigo. So those are the blues we're going to work with tonight. And then over here I have um, excuse me, I have the raw sienna. This is all Daniel Smith, raw sienna. And I can see that you can't see it on screen. I think I'm going to turn this around. So, because I use this one a lot. This is Quinacridone Sienna, raw sienna. This one over here was the Aussie Red Gold, which I only use a little bit for accents. So what we're missing is we're missing burnt sienna. So I'm going to take burnt sienna right here. Hey there, welcome in. What is it? Mike's Azo something or another art. Sorry. So this is burnt sienna. And what I usually do is I try to put small amounts on my tray and then add to it if I need them. Okay. So the one that was here is called Quinacridone Sienna. I'm going to put just a little bit more of it out because I love this. The Quinacridone Sienna. It's really very surprising. Such a surprising color, but I do love it. The Quinacridone Sienna because it's very orangey. Orangey. Here, Quinacridone Sienna. This paper is watercolor postcards. So I get a postcard, which is a 4 by 6, and then I put it on my little guillotine and I cut, these are 2 inch. So 2, 4, 6, I get 3 of these out of each one of my postcards. And that way I'm doing my swatches on watercolor paper and they're easy to shuffle through and look at. Another way that I store them is in a notebook like this. So in this notebook, I have, well, I have artist trade cards that I keep in here, but also see, these are my Schminke colors. So it's the exact same thing like that. This is the cut up postcards. And then this is like a trading card sheet. And so I keep them in here. And then it's easy for me to visually pick out the colors real quick if I need to. Okay. So that's a good handy reference tool. All right. So what we've got in here right now, we've got, oh, I still have to put that one down. So I just put this one in, there's this one, and there's this one. This is what we have so far, 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my burnt umber. So there's the darkest dark burnt umber. That's this one. And that's going to go. I think you can't see it if you're on YouTube. You might not be able to see it. It's kind of behind the QR code thing there. Okay, so that way I have some of the paint out ready for me. If the paint had been sitting in there and I left and I came back and it was a little bit hard, I just take a little spray bottle of water and I'll just activate them with a little bit of water and give it a second, and that will um, get them flowy again. Okay, so that's the order that I have. Oh, and the one that's like kind of over here was the here, the Aussie Red Gold, which, where did I put it? Okay, okay, okay. Come on, Aussie Red Gold, where'd you go? Let's see, there it is. It was hiding underneath, so that's the one that's over here. Okay, that's how I laid them out in here. But I like these kind of dishes because there's plenty of room here for color mixing, right? So I will just move these out of the way for the moment. And one of the things that the author here, so this John Lovett, one of the things he likes to start with when he's doing something like this that's very earthy is he'll, where the bricks are going to be, he's going to start with raw sienna. Okay, that's a good color to start with. So we're going to be doing this whole area all around the door with raw sienna. So let me grab a larger, I want a larger brush. This one is a Princeton Velvet Touch wash brush. That's what we need. So we're getting it wet first. Oops, I need to have a wet, I need a paper towel in my hand. Okay, so we're gonna grab some of that raw sienna right there, and then we're washing it. So nice thin layer that I'm putting over here because I still want to be able to see my my pencil lines, so I know what I'm gonna know what I'm painting. There we go. But this is where that's a nice warm base for your bricks right there. Okay. Oh, the paper that I'm working on, by the way, just so you know, this is, I like the spiral bound notebook of the Canson XL watercolor. There you go. So that's the one that I'm using today. It's a 140-pound watercolor paper. And it's not 100% cotton, but it's like the perfect paper for when you're, I mean, you can sell your artwork on this paper as well. It's acid free and all that good stuff. But if you want to do finished artwork, so let's say that I've done this image a couple times and I've played around with the colors and I'm comfortable with how I want it to lay out, then I'll move to a 100% cotton paper to do my, maybe my final piece. But I love this paper. I use it a lot. A lot of people poo-poo it. They're like, "Oh, it's not 100% cotton." Yeah, but it's great paper and a good value, right? So this is the raw sienna that I'm using here. I'm on a 9 by 12 piece of paper. And so here we're going to have bricks along the front here, right? So I'm putting some of it here as well. And I want to remember the fact that the door is skewed just a little bit when I'm doing my bricks. So the bricks over here on this side are going to be a little bit longer, and the bricks here that are closer to me are going to be a little bit shorter, okay, as I'm actually painting them. So this is called adding a wash to your page. And that's why I'm using a wash brush. So I want just a little bit more color. Again, this is raw sienna that I'm putting in here. Okay, good. So I've got a good amount there. And I'm just going to go back over it just a little bit to get a little bit of, my brush is a little bit drier right now, just to get a little variation underneath there. Okay, cool. There we go. Welcome in, everybody. If you're over on YouTube, if you wouldn't mind giving it a thumbs up. Oh, I see somebody already gave the show a thumbs up on YouTube. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right. The beautiful thing is that once this dries, you're still going to be able to easily see through it to the lines so that I know where I'm painting what. So let me bring this up a little bit so you can still see the lines underneath here and the lines around here, my reference lines, okay? If I went on with too dark of a layer, you wouldn't be able to see the lines. And then you'd lose your sketch, and that would be terrible. Okay, so let me go back here. I was messing around and I messed something up. Okay, now we're going to work with the door. And the first thing we're going to do, I want to put some of the orange down here. So I'm going to get that. Remember I told you I love this this short hair brush. Oh, and when we start doing bricks, you're going to see why I love it so much. Okay. So I want something that's orangish for my wash here. And so I'm going into the Quinacridone Sienna, which has very much of an orange look to it. So the nice thing about this bright, what they call bright brush, is that it's really good for corners. Really, really good for doing corners and little squares, boxes like this. It's perfect. You can use any sort of flat brush that you might have, but there's just something about the control in the short one that I really like. Okay, so I'm not even going all the way up to the line, okay? But I'm using that quinacridone sienna, which is very orange looking. Okay, let's bring it down here and across here. So when I start my watercolor paintings, I generally go very light like this. I just do a wash and then I come back in and I start building on the wash, building more detail. But we're going to just start with the wash there. Okay, we've got the beginning of our orange. If you weren't here earlier, this is a flower gazer. Welcome in. Flower gazer, we're working on a watercolor. I'm going to be showing you how to mix some of the really dark colors for our shadows. And this is the image that we're working from, and it's on my website on the events tab. And you can find it under the events tab. It may be under past events if since we've already started, or not. It may still be there under regular events since it's still from today. But this is a picture I took in France in 2007. So that's the one that we're working on right now. This area up here is going to be blue. So let's see, I think a nice wash of very thinned out ultramarine blue would be a good start. Okay, so lots of water in there because I just want to do a wash. And I'm not touching all the way to the edge because I don't want it to run into into here, right? I don't want it to run into where the other paint is. So, like I said, oftentimes I will leave a little space in between the colors so that they don't run into each other. If you really don't, if you want to be a little more precise and you definitely don't want anything running into each other, um, you can just dry between each color layer, okay? Just dry it. Okay, let me see something. I'm looking on YouTube and it looks like I need to raise things up just a little bit more. So let me move my camera tripod thing there. Let's put this up over here and push this down just a little bit more. There, you can still see all the colors. That's good. Just bring that up. Okay, so again, this is a super diluted version of the ultramarine blue. So for the blues tonight, I'm working with ultramarine blue, Prussian blue, and indigo. But you can work with any one of those, whatever you have. You don't certainly don't have to work with all three of them. Okay, so we're just doing this. Now, right in between the two doors, there's like a door jamb thing that from this door that hits that door. So I'm avoiding that little part in the middle there because that's going to be brown. That'll be brown. Here we go, right here. And the brush I'm using, if you weren't here before, this is a bright. This is a Famui. They call it a 1/2 inch flat. But do you see how short the bristles are? Most flats are like this. Or do I have a middle flat here? No, this is an angle. But yeah, oftentimes the flats are longer than this, but this is it's a short flat, and I love the short flat. Okay, there we go. So we started by putting raw sienna all around the outside where our bricks are going to be. And now we're just putting the initial wash for the door, which is orange at the bottom and kind of a heather blue. But we're going to start with just a light wash of the ultramarine. Now, the part that's right underneath the eave right here is actually darker. So I'm going to grab a little bit more concentration of the ultramarine. So I want it to be just a little bit darker. And I'm just going to swipe that across the top here, just to get the whole concept of that area is a little bit darker started, okay? Because we're going to be putting more layers, so you don't have to worry too much about it. Now the other thing is that you can take a wash of ultramarine and you can put that also over top of this brown that's now dry, and that will also create a shadow. Okay, so again, little bit of ultramarine on the brush, and I'm going to go over top of the area here that is the inside of the door. So if you look here, do you see the inside of the door right there? Of course, the inside of the door is going to have a reflection from the door onto the stucco here. And so we're going to use that same blue color, and we're just going to go over the area where the pencil is with the ultramarine blue, just very light here in order to create that initial shadow. Okay, we're going to be darkening everything anyway, but this is just layer number one. There we go. So it works really well when you put your blues over top of that raw sienna. There we go. Nice. Okay. Now there's a little bit of dust that got on there. So I always keep, hey, Green Jade Wins, welcome in. I always keep a needle tool and an X-Acto knife handy. So if I have to lift things like that up, I try to get it up early. There. Now it just came up, and there's another little thing over here. Okay, cool. So those are handy. They're in a little cup next to me here. Nice. Okay, so now we've got our basic background created. Now this area down here is dry. So before I go to work on the bricks, let's deepen this with another coat. So I'm dipping back into my water here, and you know what, I can see, hold on, before we do that, right down here, this part of the door right here, again, there's a little bit of the reflection of the door right on the inside there. So we're going to add just a little bit more again of the ultramarine blue and sort of create this very light shadow coming down here. And it's just putting a hint of the color in this area right here. There we go. Okay. And that'll be deepened and then deepen some more and then deepen some more as we go. Okay. Another thing I'm noticing is over here, there's a shadow from the light coming this way. So let's take the ultramarine blue just very lightly, and I'm going to make this just a little bit heavier now that most of this is dry over here. I'm going to be putting more orange in here, but that's okay. I just want to remind myself with this light blue of where my shadow's falling. Okay, there we go. All right. Ooh, before we move on though, I want to start putting a dark gray in here, right? So what color were you going to use for that gray? Remember how I mentioned with the indigo, we get a lot of grays out of the indigo. And so I'm going to start with a lighter gray. I'm going to use the indigo with the burnt sienna. Okay, so the burnt sienna is right here. So that is the classic, the classic dark gray. It's this is indigo together with a little bit of burnt sienna. Boom, gray. There we go. A little bit more of the sienna, burnt sienna there. Okay, now I have a gray. So let's lay in gray here for the window. But that is your classic gray, is your indigo and your burnt sienna, okay? There we go. Nice. So that's just the beginning of the dark windows. There we go. All right. I'll grab just a little bit more of that from here. Gray. Quick and easy. Indigo, burnt sienna. Oop, I need a little bit more indigo there. Darken it up just a little bit more. And so to get the dark windows, I just layer, layer, layer. And I'll use some other mixes as we go because I can use the indigo with this orange, the Quinacridone Sienna, and it gives a nice deep dark color. But for right now, I'm just blocking in the design. So I'm just using a very light version of the gray. Okay, beauteous. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Ah, okay, nice gray. Now this one's already almost completely dry. And what I end up doing usually is coming in with a second layer real quick. And then that intensifies this one. You can already see this one is darker than this one. All I did was wait for that to dry for a minute and slap another coat of exactly the same color on it, and it's deepening it, right? Awesome. Okay, so that was the indigo and the burnt sienna. Now what we have down here is the quinacridone sienna from Daniel Smith, which is a very orange color right here. So I'm going to grab a little bit more of that on the brush. So here we go, layer number 2, and to start intensifying this. Whoop, and there we go. And usually with my watercolor paintings, I end up putting anywhere from 3 to 6 coats, just layer, layer, layering. So this is coat number 2 of that orange to help begin to intensify it. I find it's better to build it up this way because then you're less likely to have a boo-boo. If you just go in with intense color to start with, and then you're like, oh man, that's like too much. Oops. Right? Okay, nice. We're beginning to get orange, 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 orange show in there. Awesome. All right. I'm going to pick up, this should be partly dry, right? So I'm picking up the indigo and the burnt sienna again, another quick coat here. Nope, not that dark. Okay, so if it's not dark enough, a little bit more indigo, a little bit more burnt sienna, and there we go. We should be able to get, come on, burnt sienna, get in there. A little bit more indigo. There we go. I need that little bit darker gray. Perfect. So we can just say, okay, now we have 2 coats on the window here. Whew. Okay, so we're beginning to intensify the windows. And if you weren't here earlier, I'm going to show you real quick the This is the ultramarine blue, the Prussian blue, and the indigo. And I've mixed it with burnt sienna, burnt umber, raw sienna, quinacridone sienna, and Aussie Red Gold to see what my different darks are going to be. Okay. And this indigo and the burnt sienna give me like the closest thing to a gray. All right. If I wanted a darker color like this, I would do the indigo with the quinacridone sienna. That's this orange looking one over here. Okay, then I'm going to get a deeper black, but I'm building layers, so we'll get to that. Uh, all right, let's see, let's see. Let's start blocking in some of the bricks around it. Now that we've kind of got this going and it's drying, again, bricks, this is my favorite for bricks, this short one here. So for the bricks, I like to do a combination. I love this quinacridone sienna, which is very orange, but I'm going to be combining it with my burnt sienna, which is also very orange, and my burnt umber. So you see here, I just mix and blend until I get a color that I like. And I say, oh, that's a brick color. Okay. So now we're going to, oh, I see a drop got right there. I've got some bricks right here. Oh, let's do the keystone brick. It's up here at the top. And it sort of goes like this, right? Kind of goes like that. And it's a little bit taller. Okay. So there's our keystone brick. So again, I'm just blocking them in. And usually, as I'm blocking each one of the bricks in, I come back up and I kind of mess around and get different combinations here so that every single brick doesn't look exactly the same. So then I have another brick next to that right here. But if you have a flat brush like this, it helps a lot to make make the bricks. Okay. And then I have another one right here. And there we go. I think that one needs to be a little bit wider. You could mess around. See, I have lines, reference lines there, but I'm not really following my reference lines. Plus, as I'm doing this, more layers, I can just change what it looks like also. I can change these bricks a little bit. Okay. Then let's make this one a little bit wider. And let's make this one right here just a little bit wider, like that. Okay, so we're beginning to build those keystones there across the top. And what if I put a little bit of raw sienna in there? And then here, this one's going to be almost the same as the one over here. But then as I start to go this way, they're going to get a little bit skinnier. Okay, another one right here. And then another one right here. Okay, so those are my keystone bricks. I'm going to bring this one up just a little bit more. See, that's why I'm just using the lighter colors here so I can just adjust. There we go. Plus, you know what? I'm not trying to be true to form because there aren't even any underneath the plaster they're there. But I'm making it up. So make it up as you like. Okay, there we go. And this has to come down just a little bit more so that it's right on the edge there. Boop. Right? Because they are part of the edge there. Nice. Awesome. Okay, cool. Now we're going to build the bricks over here. So we're doing the same thing. Now, once I've got my bricks in, I can start changing the color of them. But I just want to now over here, The bricks are a little bit longer. In-law forgot that it's class day. So she's trying to call me from California. Okay, so I'm just dropping in some bricks here. They don't have to be the same length or the same, even the same width. Yeah, okay, here we go. All right, so you see why I said I love this particular brush because it's just so good at being able to do these short, like to me, it's the perfect brick brush. Let's do a short brick here. Let's do a brick that goes way over here, right? So in the medieval times when the city that I was photographing was established, right? Every brick was not the same. So there we go. Like this, each family just grabbed what they could, right? What do they have? There we go. And down here. There we go. Okay. So we have bricks. All right. And then up here, we actually have a part of a brick that kind of comes up like this on the corner. It was cut at an angle there, right? Okay, there's another brick there. Now over here, the bricks are a little bit shorter. Ah, it's coming along nicely. Thank you, Antoinette. Appreciate that. So over here, the bricks are a little bit shorter, right? This is closer to us. This is a little bit farther away from us. So they're skinnier here and bigger over here. Um, so what I need, these should actually be a little bit slightly at an angle also. So I'm slightly adding a tiny bit of angle to these so they're not straight. Yee! Sorry, we'll get it. We'll get it. It's okay. It is a painting after all, not a photograph, right? So it doesn't matter. Um, so over here, this is a little bit wide. It is a little bit wide. So let me see what I have that's a little more narrow um, for these bricks. Ah, let's see. So this is an angle brush. Do you see the little angle right there? So I can still get little bricks out of it. So let's go ahead and get this wet and bring it in here and get some of this. And I'm using a little bit more of the raw sienna here. So let's see how these go. Eee! This one's going to have to be a little bit like that and then down. And then a little bit here, a little bit deeper maybe, a little bit skinnier. There we go. So this is not as wide as that right along the edge. I was noticing it. A little bit wider, but just not as wide. So I wanted to have a little more control here with this smaller brush. Plus they look a little more narrow right here, the closer ones to us. Let's do a short one like this. Short and a little bit deeper. Okay, there we go. Grab a little bit more. Easy peasy though, right? It's just a matter of step by step. Okay. And what we're going to do with the darks, of course, we're going to come in and we're going to put shadows in here. We're going to put a shadow along here. We're going to put dark underneath each one of these bricks because the bricks are generally sticking out a little bit, right? And there's mortar in between them. So we're going to be putting some dark in between some of the bricks to get that look. Okay, let's see here. Almost done with these bricks. Yee. Okay, cool. We've got those bricks right there, the wall. Let's bring this one out just a little bit more. Okay, and now we've got bricks along here. Ay! In the front. So maybe I'll add a little bit more burnt sienna to it so it's just a little bit darker, just a little bit darker. All right, so these are going, this is a little bit small, so I'm going to grab the wider one again. Dang, now I got to put more color on it, right? It's all right. I'll pick up some more of that burnt sienna right there. Love the burnt sienna for this. Very nice for the natural. Okay, so it goes like that. And we're just putting our bricks here. E. Okay, I'm just following along with the line that I created before. So give yourself grace. It's a painting. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just, actually, for me, it's a lot of fun to do these. A lot of fun. Okay, cool. So there's the bricks for that. Nice. That's the landing, right? Now what I want to do is there are bricks all along here, but again, this part right here is okay. The the taller up I get though, I may need a different one. So what I'm doing is I'm angling these here on the inside. I'm angling them up just a little bit. Okay, there we go. And I'm kind of following along with where the brick is here because it's one brick going into the wall. And yeah, so it needs to sort of follow a bit of the same shape as the one that's out here. Okay, I actually need this one to come up a little bit more, up a little bit more. Okay. Yay. If there's something that I feel I placed wrong, I just real quick use my finger and push it out of the way. Okay, let's do this right here for that one. This one right here for this one. Nice. Now you can kind of get that 3D look to it. Okay, that one. I'm turning my brush a little bit to the side so that it's getting a smaller footprint as I do it. Okay, smaller footprint as I'm going up the wall. Okay, let's do this one right here. I don't want to get this color over into that blue. That's what I'm trying to avoid, is getting the color over into the blue. Don't do it. All right. Okay. There we go. And then along the top here, we don't have, there's stucco. There's not the bricks. So I think I'm just going to leave this part up here and just drop a shadow in and not worry about being able to see the bricks up there. Okay. uh, Otherwise, I would follow along with these bricks up here. But like I said, it was stuccoed in there. So I think I'm just going to leave that. I am going to darken it a little bit more right now, though. So let me just take a little bit of this. Not that much. Oh my goodness. That is way too orange. Let's get some of the burnt sienna in there so that I've got the dark orange so I can go underneath there. Yee! There's a lot of color in here. So I'm just darkening this a little bit, right? The sort of stucco area, but I'm going to keep darkening it with blue as well. But I'm just going to put another layer of this on it right here. Now, this gets really skinny over here, so I can either use this brush on its side like this, Or of course I could come in with another detail, like a detail round brush, but I'm gonna live dangerously right now and just use the side of this brush. Nice. Okay, awesome. It's beginning to come together. Now, of course, there it's not just those bricks. I'm going to do one more layer of bricks out from that. Okay. And then we'll go back to the door. So let's just do one more layer of bricks. So here I can begin to, well, we're going to have bricks going up top of this door. We're going to have bricks going this way. So let me put a brick here and maybe have it be a little bit longer like that. A little bit more color. Come on, color. A little denser. And then we'll do another brick right here. Maybe this is a short one. And then we'll do another long one over here. And we can make them a little bit deeper. So you're just going to build your bricks across like this. See what I mean about having a brush like this? That just makes it so quick. I love this brush. I call it my brick brush. So we're going to just bring down here. We're going to bring a long one over here. This one can come down a little bit more, right? And then we'll do a short one over here. Nice. So you just start building your brick pattern. So here we'll put a short one right here. And then we'll do another long one over here. And then we'll start to bring another brick in underneath that. Right? Quick and easy, quick and easy. Let's do a short one here. So in general, with this kind of brick layout, you're just laying bricks on top of bricks. When you're doing a stone wall, generally you've got very uneven. You're going to have very uneven stones. So let me show you that real quick. Like, where is the book? Did I leave it in the book? Nope. Okay, here. Where are the pictures? Here are the pictures. So when you have a stone wall, you see how these are all kind of in the same rows, right? But when you have a stone wall like this, the stones are different shapes and sizes. So it's going to be different. All right. I'm working with a brick wall right now. That's what I'm creating is a brick wall. Okay, so we've got a short brick here and then a long brick. So the reason that we put down that the sienna in the background, the raw sienna, is we want to have color behind our bricks. Okay, so this one needs to be kind of short like that. And then we'll do a long one. So you're just leaving gaps. You're leaving gaps in between each brick and you're leaving gaps in between each row. Easy, right? Easy peasy. Okay. And let's do this here. Bigger brick like that. And these are just a little bit, you can make them a little bit smaller. Let's do this here. Yee! All right, that decided to be a long one. All right, so you just keep building. I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to do a little bit more here. Okay, there's that one. Because I'll have enough to be able to show you as we go. And let's do a long one right there. Okay, so that's enough. One little bit more. I'll finish all of this off camera, but right now what I wanted to do is just show you the basics. And I'll just work with this top area right here when it comes to the bricks, okay? but normally you would finish out the whole thing with bricks. Okay, so as the bricks are drying, then you can go back to the door. Let's take a look at the door. The door is a kind of a lavender color, isn't it? So to get the lavender, I'm going to introduce some of the permanent alizarin crimson here, right? I'm just going to put a little bit of permanent alizarin crimson out that I had shown you earlier. And then we want to mix that with, we want to get a purple. So we want like a heathery purple, which is a light purple. So this is the ultramarine blue. I'm going to grab a little bit of the ultramarine blue, right? And then I'm going to put it together with just a little bit of the E. Okay, that's a very red purple, isn't it? So I'm adding more of the ultramarine. I'm just trying to get a sort of more toward the blue, heathery type purple. Okay, maybe I'll just mix it right in the dish right here. Okay, yay. Now I've got something that's more of a heather blue purple. And that was using that tiny bit of alizarin crimson. Can you see it in the bowl there? So let's put this on here. Yee, here we go. Yes, that is like the perfect heather blue. Nice. And so we're going to put it right where it was darker blue up here. It's naturally as a glaze, it's going to make it look darker, right? Okay, so we'll bring some of it down here. Nice. I like it. That's perfect. So that was the ultramarine and the alizarin crimson. A little bit more here. Fabulous. Now we're getting sort of that heathery, purpley blue color that we were looking for, right? Awesome. Love that. Okay. Let's bring it down just a little bit more. Nice. I love it. Okay. We need a little bit more of it. Let's grab a little bit more of that. And we're going to bring that over here. So here we go. Heather. Heather purple. Bring this. This brush is a little bit wide for that space, so I'm having to put it on its side to get it to come down there. Fantastic. Look at that. Look at that. Okay. I'm getting nice and dark underneath the eave there. Bring it across here, bring it down. When this brush starts to get dry, it gets little splits. Do you see the little splits on the hair right there? Um, I like that because I can use it to my advantage to kind of give some grainy marks to what I'm working with. But that's just as the brush gets a little bit drier, it gets those little splits in it. Okay, there we go. Ooh, fantastic. Look at that. Let's just add a little bit more dark over here because with the door being right next to this eave here, actually, I'm going to go a little bit into the window because, right, the picture itself shows that there's a little bit of extra darkness over here from the door. So I'm just bringing some of the purple in over top of that black. We'll just deepen that a little bit more anyway. Ooh, it's looking good. Okay, love it. Let's see here. While I'm at it, I want to make this just a little bit darker up here. So let me grab just a tiny, tiny bit of the alizarin crimson. And again, put it um, with the ultramarine, a little more concentrated so that it'll be slightly darker. And then bring that through here just to get that little bit darker. underneath the eave. Okay, cool. Cool, 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 cool. Dunk. There we go. So it's a little bit darker up in this area up here. I like it. I like it. All right, let's go back to the windows. Now, I know in my picture the windows are dusty, dirty, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to make them dark. So what did I do to get dark? I did ultramarine. I'm sorry, indigo. So we're going to do indigo. Why don't we mix this maybe in a separate dish to get the dark, dark, dark. So we've got indigo here, and I have another dish. So let's put some of the indigo in the dish like this. Yee. And then we'll bring some of the quinacridone sienna. Oh, gray, like instantly, instant gray. Look at that. So I had said earlier that to get this light gray, I did the indigo together with the burnt sienna. But if you want to get this instant gray like this, you mix your indigo with the quinacridone sienna, which is much more orange, and you get an almost instant gray, dark gray. Nice. So here we go with the windows, just quickie, quickie. So this is another layer, just darkening them. Okay, cool. So that's just building the layers, y'all, building the layers. Okay, cool. Nice. So that's how I deepen and darken because that's a dark color, but it's watercolor. So because there's a lot of water in there, it comes up this kind of light gray. So to get your dark, dark, dark black, you have to just keep layering it. The other option that you can do is you can make black from the three primaries. So that's a red, a yellow, and a blue, right? So let's do that real quick. So I've got my dark blue here. Let's put the blue in there. So that's the indigo. So I've got some indigo in there. And then the red I would need, so the alizarin. There's some alizarin. And then I need a yellow. So I showed you earlier, I like the Aussie Red Gold, has a very yellow undertone right there. That's this one right here. So if I take some of that and I mix it in there, okay, now I've got a kind of a brown. So and it's a reddish brown. So that tells me I need more blue. Let's use the indigo. I'm getting more indigo on my brush right here. And then we'll combine that in there. And now we're getting a darker. So there is a black right there. So if I put this on here, that was from three primaries. So that's from a blue, a red, and a yellow together. So you can see when I do this, you'll see the difference between the two, right? You see how much deeper that is than this one. So when I was using the indigo and just the sienna, I'm getting more of a gray. But when I do the triad of blue, a deep blue, alizarin crimson, and yellow, I'm getting a dark, like a black. Nice. So that's a much deeper, deeper color. There we go. Cool. That's fun. Okay. Let's get this area down here a little bit redder. So I'm going to combine now to get this redder. I'm going to combine some of the uh, what is this one? The crimson, alizarin crimson, with that what we were using before, which is the quinacridone sienna. So now I should get something that is a deeper, deeper orange red. There we go. Nice. Like it. And using a flat brush really helps with these edges, right? Now let's do that again. So I'm using the Alizarin Crimson to deepen the orange. Nice. Oh, fabulous. And then down like this. So later on in later layers, that's when I add character, when I add the look of wood, when I add, so you've got slats and things, right? All right. Wow, that's looking terrific. Looking great. Okay. Now let's go back to the bricks. So this is what I do. I work in one area while the other area dries. And then while this is drying, I go back to the other area here. So let's work on those bricks some more. And I'm going to come in with more of um, this is the burnt sienna, which has a very reddish hue to it. I love burnt sienna for that sort of reddish hue. And I'm going to start darkening these bricks. Now, like I said, if this is dry, it's got a little striation here. So instead of pulling it along flat like this, I'm going to lift it up a little bit more so I can get a little bit of that effect on my bricks here. And you don't have to put it on the whole brick, just put it on part of the brick. And what that'll do is that'll give you some areas are darker, some areas are lighter, like this, right? You're starting to get some texture in there. There we go, like this. So I'm just beginning to build some texture in these. Let's do this one here, like that. All right, got some texture there. I want to come in here and put a little bit of texture in here. So I'm, yes, I'm scraping it along, but I'm also tapping to get some extra texture. And you can do that. What a lot of artists will do, especially the Asian artists, they'll take their brush and they'll literally spread apart the little hairs of it. So can you see that one where they're kind of separated like that? Ooh, like I said, great brush because they separate like that. And so it makes it a lot easier for you to get some texture going in their bricks by just tapping it or a little bit this way, a little bit that way. I'm not covering the whole thing now. I'm just putting bits of color in. Okay. So now the bricks they look rough, right? They don't look smooth. But that's just on these. Now I need to get over here and get those too. But I'm going to use this on its side because these are short bricks. See? So I've got it instead of flat, I've got it at an angle like this so that I'm able to get some of that in there, but it's not all long. Okay, there we go. Yee! There we go. Giving those that extra texture. And here, there we go. Textured bricks. Yeah, nice. They're looking much better. We'll texture these bricks down here. Fab. Yeah, that's what you need, a brush that you can fan these out and get that extra texture going. Okay, so now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to work on those a little bit. And I'm pulling together some of the burnt sienna and the burnt umber. I'm keeping my brush somewhat dry so that I can come in here and do my texturizing. Nice. And then you don't have to keep it all the same. You can pull some other colors if you don't want all the bricks to look the same. Right? You can alternate. That way you can come back with different colors. Now this is, I wouldn't consider this the last layer, so it doesn't really matter if it's all the same color because I would be coming back in with more layers anyway. There we go. Adding some texture in there. Nice. Okay, bricks. Fabulous. All right. Ooh, I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. I'm just throwing some more texture in here since these are already dry. There we go. Just to give you a little something different. Nice. Okay. Woo, looking good. Now I want to right, this area in here is mostly dry now. Now, for purposes of this demonstration, I'm only doing this part up here. But normally I would finish out, bricks all around. But just for right now, we're just working on the top part. Okay, now I might go in with a little bit more of the orange so I can vary some of the color of the bricks with some of this orange, right? Because that orange is so pretty. That's the Quinacridone Sienna. Okay, there we go. Gives you a little variation with the orange too. So we've got some darks, we've got some orange. Okay, nice. Got it. All right, so it's beginning to, isn't it beginning to look like bricksy? Awesome. Okay, let's go back to the door. Um, I am going to, I want to run this along so we can create sort of the wood slats. So in order to do that, I'm just looking here. This is called a liner brush. So it's long and skinny like that. And so you can use it to make lines if that's what you're ready for. Um, so I'm going to, let's see, what color do we want the lines to be? Kind of some burnt umber here. So I've got burnt umber. And then I may want to combine the burnt umber with a little bit of the indigo. So let me grab some of the indigo. Now I could use ultramarine blue. Maybe we'll do that. We'll do some of the burnt umber with the ultramarine blue. Yeah. The reason I said that is because we've got ultramarine in the door, not indigo in the door. We've got indigo in the windows, but not in the door. So I'm just looking over here at my picture. We're gonna just come along and put some slots in. Now look, I'm doing this by hand, so I am not worried if the slots are not perfect. All right. I'm not worried if they're straight. I'm not worried if they are the same distance apart. I'm not worried about it because this is a painting. It's not a photograph, right? So it is okay if everything is not even, y'all. It really is. Okay, there we go, like that. And then one right here. So I combined the burnt umber with the ultramarine since most of the color, the blue that's in the door, is ultramarine, right? So that makes the most logical sense. It helps if you to keep color harmony if you're mixing with the same, like here we're using this blue, so we want to stick with the same ultramarine blue to give us those beautiful lines. Really nice, warm brown that created. And with the liner brush, now I need to thicken this line up just a little bit. So I'm going to come back over it. Yee! And I need to thicken this line up just a little bit. Nice. Oh, it looks good. I like it. I like it. There's actually a little seam right here because that's where the door meets. So remember, this is a liner brush that I'm using. Okay, so the liner brush, nice. And this actually comes all the way down here. Okay, so this part of the door here, this is where I had made myself a little line. And this is the part of the door that overlaps. This door overlaps that door. So here we go, all the way down. But the nice thing about a liner is it's designed for you to be able to do long lines. Okay, long lines like this. So it holds a lot of paint up in this part to feed it down to the tip. Now I also need to use this across here. So this is at the base of the door. And also across here. And it doesn't matter that it's not even. It just doesn't matter, y'all. Uh, we're painting. Okay. And then what am I doing? I'm doing it on the other door over here. So I'm looking at my picture to see where our planks are. There's a plank right here. Nice. To me, that doing the line work like this, very meditative. It's like, take a deep breath. Actually, I have to remember to breathe because when I'm painting, I find that I stop breathing, y'all. I noticed that one time I was working on a larger painting and I was doing the edge of the painting in black. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I did that whole thing and I didn't breathe. So remember to breathe. Okay, wonderful. Love this dark color. So this is the this is the burnt umber with the ultramarine blue. Gives you a very nice dark color. Okay, cool. There we go. A little bit more here. And then we'll get to some more shadows. Okay, nice. I have no idea whether I got it in line or not. Okay, that's looking good. Looking good. You get the feel for it. So ultramarine and burnt umber makes this beautiful line that actually has a bit of a brown undertone. It's pretty cool the way it has the brown undertone. There we go. And then the last one over here. Am I getting it straight? I don't know. Okay, yay. Woo, woot, woot. Now, it's not in the picture, but I'm going to put a line right here at the top of the panel. There we go. Just to block it off, you know? And this, now, I'm looking at the picture and where the door goes into the wall here, it's quite dark. So I'm going to use that same sort of dark color. And I'm just dropping in a bit of a shadow right here. So this is burnt umber and ultramarine gives you this really nice dense shadow color. So another shadow, right? But that's using ultramarine and burnt umber. So I'm actually going to drop in a bit of a shadow along here too. Yee. So we've got We've got our shadow in there. Now, if I put too much on, I always have my handy dandy paper towel so that I can lift some of the color. So often when I'm doing shadows, I put a color down and then I lift it, all right, so that it's not too dark because I can always add more if I need it darker. Now, there's a lot of shadow over here and there's a shadow on the door. So again, this is burnt umber and the um, ultramarine blue. Sorry, I was focusing. Okay. I'm looking at my picture and I've got a big shadow right up in here. Okay. So I've got that big shadow there. I don't want to mark it too much, just a little bit. What is that? It's okay. It's okay. And then another place where there's a shadow like this. And again, using the ultramarine blue is good because we're using it on top of a color that was derived from ultramarine blue, right? And that is all along here and actually coming in this way a little bit. So we've got a shadow. So we're dropping that in there. And the shadow comes across this as well. So I'm just dropping the shadow in there. Yee! And the shadow is going to have to go over top of whatever the door there too. And if there's a shadow on the door, there's also going to be a shadow on the ground right here, right? At least as much as that that door thing is sticking out there. Okay. You can always deepen it, right? You can always deepen it, but at least that way I'm just bringing it so it's sort of at an angle where the light would be darkening that. Okay, cool. So we've got some shadows going on there. So I'm looking at the picture. That's the shadow right up in here. It kind of goes over the door a little bit here. There's a little bit right there where it meets and a little bit at the top. Now you see this up here. We're going to go with some more of that ultramarine blue here. Eee. So I'm going to just use, I like to use what's in my bowl, right? Or on my dish. And so, you know what? This is not the right brush for this. It was perfect for making the lines, but it's not a good brush for what I need to do now. So I'm actually going to use this small angle brush right now. So I've got a little bit of that burnt umber and the ultramarine blue here. And so now I'm bringing it in this area right here, right underneath the eave, right? Just another shadow layer. There we go. And I know that I want to build it up just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Yeah, a little bit more blue. There we go. Yay. Nice. Now you're starting to be able to see more of a shadow. And I'm actually going to bring the shadow. What I've got here is a lighter mix of the shadow that we were just working with. So I can drop this little bit lighter shadow in here because your shadow is usually not just a line, right? It's usually fading. So by having just a little bit of that blue with the burnt umber in it, I'm just bringing the shadow down just a little bit more, just a little more here. Okay, nice, nice. And where else do I want some? I think I want some right along this edge right here. Just dropping in a little bit of shadow because this door is actually, this piece in the middle here goes over top of the door here. So I'm just dropping in that little bit of a shadow because that part of the door, which we're still going to make brown, is going to cast a little bit of a shadow onto the other door, right? Nice. And then what's going on down here? Okay, not much. Not much. Um, I actually need to, where is my liner brush? I actually need to continue this. Maybe not. This is the doorstop. Okay, let's get, let's do some dark brown for the doorstop right there. So I'm just grabbing my burnt umber. There we go. Burnt umber. We got you. And I'm just dropping the burnt umber in here. So it's a little bit darker. I'm going to build that up so that the brown is even darker brown. But for now, let's just deposit that in there. Okay. And I am using the liner for that because it's easier to come down the door. Don't worry about leaving white. I know I've told folks who have watched me before, it's like, it's okay to leave white because we're painting. Like I said, it's not a photograph, we're painting. And if you leave some white, that helps you to delineate your different areas. And it's okay. It's okay. I think it gives an interesting look. Not everybody likes that. Some people like to cover the whole area, but I like to leave some white. See, not quite wet enough. Come on, you can do it. There we go. Okay, good. So we can see the wood there in the middle. Nice. Ooh, it's coming together. Now there is a little latch and a lock and everything right there. I'm not gonna not gonna deal with that right now. Oh, that's easy enough to add after the fact. Okay. So that was working on, let's do just a little bit more deepening of this, the door. So what, where the heck did my brush go? Okay. I'm missing my favorite brush. There it is. Um, so this was the three colors, right? The indigo, the Aussie Red Gold, and this Alizarin Crimson. So let's put a little more Alizarin Crimson in there, a little bit more of the yee, indigo, like that. And then that's pretty dark, but let's add a little bit of the Aussie Red Gold. It's kind of a yellow. Uh-oh, now we've got an orange. That's okay. I just keep mixing those colors together until I get the depth of black that I want. Okay, that's better. Still kind of brown though. I need more indigo. So I'm reaching over here and grabbing more indigo. There we go. It's getting darker. Nice. Okay, now I've got something that's a little bit more black. Let's another coat. So this is how I deepen my black like this. This is coat what, number 5, I think, of the black. So I just keep adding and adding and adding more, okay, in order to deepen that. Nice. All right. Let's go back to the bricks. The bricks. So at this point with the bricks, normally I do, so far we've done like 3 layers on the bricks, and normally I would do more layers on the bricks. But right now it's just to keep deepening the color, right? You see how I go in and I deepen and deepen and deepen, right? Actually, I'm looking at something here and I'm like, wait a minute. I need a little bit more of the shadow color in here. This is that ultramarine blue with just a hint of the uh, burnt umber in it. There we go. I just needed to add a little bit more of the shadow in on the side here. Okay. One of my teachers when I was in art school was like, I would bring her something and she would say, more contrast. So what that means is you're constantly looking at where can I darken something next to something light, right? Dark it, dark light, dark light. So she would always tell me more dark, but I'm very cautious. I like to take my time with my darks and layer them up because I don't want to add too much dark and then be like, oh my gosh, I can't lift it up. Because with watercolor, that's the thing. If it gets too dark, you're in trouble. So let's go ahead now and I'm going to show you what I do to put in the dark in between the bricks because the bricks tend to stick out a little bit. And yes, you've got the mortar in between them, but you've also got some darkness in between them. So we're going to go back to the angle brush like this, or you can use a flat. Let me see, do I have a smaller flat? I have a small flat here, but it's so long. I don't like I don't have good control with that. Okay, I'm looking for a good small flat. Do I have one? Small flat. Come on. Oh, Pebeo. Yes. This is a good one. This is a Pebeo um, imitation squirrel flat. So let's use that one. So what I do in between the bricks is they're generally, if the light is coming from right up top, they're generally lighter at the top and darker at the bottom. So I will use, like this is the alizarin crimson and some of the burnt umber and some of the blue. So I want to create a dark color. So let's go back to the ultramarine. So I've got my ultramarine and I've got a little bit of the alizarin crimson that was left in there and some of the burnt umber. So now I've got a dark color. And if you wanted to, you could throw a little bit of burnt sienna in there. I just need something dark, darker than the current bricks. Okay. And I'm using the colors that are already up in there. Okay, cool. Nice. Now I have a nice dark. That's why I love trays like this so that I have a lot of mixing room. So I've got a dark color here and the bottom of the bricks is going to be dark and some of the areas in between the bricks is going to be dark. Okay, so I'm just tapping it and not even. Maybe I have some more dark in this area right here. Now, like I said, I would have put more layers. I would have darkened these bricks even more with more layers before doing this normally, but I wanted to show you. Move it along. Move along. Okay, so in this area right here, and just put a little bit. So what I'm doing is moving along the bricks and then turning it up this way in order to get in between the bricks like this. So just sort of tapping, and you want it to be uneven, okay? But you're adding darkness to the bottom of the bricks and leave a little bit of light toward the top of the brick that's underneath it, okay? Because the brick underneath it is going to have some light on it like that. So you should be able to see the three-dimensionality of the bricks begin to show. And again, if you want to change that so it's not all the same color, you can just go in and add some of your different colors in there. I just added a little bit more of the burnt sienna like that. Okay. So what I'm doing here is right along the bottom of those bricks. I'm adding some, and you can even bring it in here a little bit too to give you that the fact that those bricks go here and inside there. Okay. Let me get a little bit more here so that you can see it better. All right. And then in between, oh, let me just do this side here too. Okay. So the mix is a little bit of alizarin crimson, the burnt umber, and the burnt sienna is what I'm using for the dark. Oh, and a little bit of the, just a little bit of the ultramarine blue as well. Okay. And here. All right. And then the keystone bricks up here. So I want to add some like this right along here where these bricks are, like right down along here for sure. Now, if you want to, you can add a bunch of texture to the bricks by just going in with the brush and adding in a little bit more texture because sometimes the bricks are not even. So like this, see how these bricks are not just solid blocks? They have all of that texture to them. So with this same mix, you can just go right into the bricks and add a little bit of extra texture in there too. And that will, they'll look good. They will look good. Let me just add a little bit more on my brush here. Hey, I'm running out. Right along here, up in here a little bit. Right, little inside the bricks. Just add to the texture in there. Oh, if it's too much, like that was a little bit dark, you just lift it while it's still wet, and then that way it's not quite so bad. All right, that's looking good. And then I let things dry, and then I come back and I look at it and go, a good thing that you can do is take a photograph of your artwork and then look at what it looks like in a photograph. And sometimes it looks way better in a photograph, y'all, than it does in person. And you're like, ooh, okay, I should make a print out of this. Because sometimes they look better in a photograph than they do in person. In person, you're like, hmm. But in a photograph, oftentimes you get more of the depth because I'm looking at it right now, 3D, I mean, 2D right in front of me. But when I look at it on the camera, what you're seeing, I'm like, oh wow, it looks so much more 3D when I look at it on the on that camera. And that's because of all of the shadowing that I was putting into place, right? So I'm going to use this same dark color and I'm going to come in here again and I'm going to darken this eave underneath here and a little bit more here because I can. And it's a good idea to keep darkening those darks, right? Keep darkening the darks. All right, cool, cool. All right. I like where it's going. And the little bit of white helps a lot. Now, I'm going to put a little bit of brown around the windows just to sort of have the windows show up a little bit better. And I normally would use the liner, but I think I'm going to use the small one of the angled. I think I'll have the better luck with that. So I'm going to use that same brown that I have here in the door. So that was the burnt umber. So I'm just going to take some of the burnt umber and mix it with a little bit of the darker color there. And then we're going to go around the windows. There we go. Just to sort of frame them out, right? Just to frame out the windows. You, because otherwise they just look like they're floating there. So let's make them look like they're actually there, like in the door. Because it's okay to leave that little bit of white space. See, I had left a little bit of white space around them, and that's okay because now I can put the brown in, and the brown won't be drowned out by too much of the black, right? or too much of the blue either. Okay, there we go. Nice. Ooh, that helps, I think. Okay. The other thing I want to do is I want this to be a little bit more orangey down here. So once the areas are dry, you can do what's called a glaze. So actually, if I show you this piece that I did yesterday, and so you can see the black that I've put down underneath these to give them that extra um, dimension. And then I glazed over the whole thing with one color. So that's where I use a big brush like this. And so let's see if I can do some glazing here. So I've got that uh, Quinacridone Sienna, which is that beautiful orange. Oops. So let me just glaze over this, and you're going to see it just adds that little bit more of a depth to the color when you do a glaze like this. Glaze. Awesome. Yeah, I love doing glazes. Okay, cool, cool, cool. That little bit of extra there is going to add like a nice sort of shadow as it dries. That little bit of extra. Love it. Okay, so that's for there. And then to do the bricks, I take a thin layer of that quinacridone sienna. So it's just barely there on the brush, lots of water. And you notice I'm turning the brush back and forth like this. Okay, turning, turning. And now it's nice and full. And then I come across, and this is glazing. So I'm glazing them, and that adds a beautiful unifying warmth to all of that, where all the bricks are. So let me move this over just a little bit here. So I'm just unifying all the bricks with a glaze like that. And so what that helps to do is it helps to bring the design together, and it helps to unify all the areas that are using that color, brings them all together. Okay? So that is it for the presentation. Of course, I will later I will add more to the bricks and finish out this part. I might put the little lock or latch on there on the door to help finish up the door. But again, this is the picture that I was using. It's a picture that is on my website. So if you're not familiar with my website, you can also sign up for my newsletter. So in the newsletter, I let you know what the workshops are and what articles I've written from the previous week's workshops. But here on my website, deetzart.com, you can find this picture, and it is under the events tab. So it'll be in the past events since the show has already started, and the pictures are in there. Also, by next Sunday, I will write the article that goes with this workshop. And when I write that article, I include the reference photos in the article as well. And you can find those articles on my blog on my website.